Welcome to Doodle Jumping in Unity. First question of the day. How many of you have played Doodle Jump? All right, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. I guess, are there some folks who have not besides Dennis that haven't played?
I haven't either.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah. I played this.
You played that? Okay, cool,
Yeah,
perfect.
but in an arcade.
Okay, nice.
'Cause I'm old.
Okay, I didn't know they had an arcade version of it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a setup kind of like Flappy Bird.
I've seen one at my
Okay.
local Sunsplash.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's nice. Right on. Okay, so we're gonna make a version of Doodle Jump in Unity, and this whole section is just mostly about understanding what Unity is all about, the capabilities, and actually to get some gameplay in here. All right. So we do have um, some files for you to download, and Zach just posted it in the chat. It is through the GitHub for the meetup. So there's two files. And they're both Unity packages. Okay, one is for the starter file that we're all going to start with, and if you want to see the end result, you can also have access to the final, which has everything running and playing. Okay, and one of the things about Doodle Jump itself and all the fun stuff is we first got to figure out how to break the game down and then move forward once we build everything in Unity. But before we jump into that, does everyone have Unity open? All right, so what I'm going to do is, here, let me share my screen. We're going to jump into this, and it's number 2. There we go. All right. When in Unity itself, if I can't see my toolbar. Hold on one second. Why is my toolbar not working? Oh, it's because, there we go, perfect. All right, so in Unity Hub, what you're gonna do is, if you haven't built it yet, you're gonna click New, and this option will pop up. Give your project a name. So in this case, I think I just called mine Meetup Doodle Jump, right? And then it says it already exists, so I'm just gonna say 1 for right now. And you click 2D and you click Create, all right? So now, based on your computer, it may take a second for you to have it open up and all that, but once you've done that, it will open up to this right here, all right? So what we're gonna do is just make sure everyone gets to this, because it takes a while to catch up if we move right away. But while everyone's loading this up, I'm just gonna do a quick overview of Unity and everything that's laid out inside of this engine, how the engine itself is laid out, all right? So you guys all see my mouse? I think if I shake it like this, it's gonna, nope, probably not. But right here to the left, you see where the tab says hierarchy? That is where all your elements in the game actually reside, all right? So we'll be dragging elements there, and it will show up in the scene, which is this tab right here. Everything is tab oriented. So if you hover over it, it's gonna slightly change color, and you could click into it, all right? So this is the scene, and if you all just hit play, which is right up here, it'll turn blue. And this is how the game looks like right now if you actually ran it, all right? So important note, if you do push play, you gotta click the play button one more time, because if you move around while it's in play mode, it won't save what your changes. The second you click unplay, it will revert back to it before you click play, okay? So just be careful with that piece. I am gonna click on the main camera real quick. So when you click on an object over here, that is, the inspector itself will show up and it'll fill everything out in terms of what's inside of that object. right? In Unity, we work with things called game objects. Just think of it as a giant container, and you're telling it what this container is. So Unity defines a bunch of containers for you, right? So it's like, here's a camera. Cool. Camera, they already decided, hey, camera needs this transform piece, a camera, and an audio listener, okay? So you can make your own from scratch, or you could use what Unity provides. And we'll talk more about some of the options that Unity provides. But for the most part, just know when we say, hey, when we click on the element, go to the inspector, it means look on the right side, and we're gonna focus on that piece right there, okay? And then down here at the bottom, you're gonna see where it says project. This is how all your files are laid out and how we're gonna actually put things into the project to then use in our game, okay? So we're gonna also make sure we organize things because organization is super important, okay? And then you do have a tab here for console, and we'll click on that when we're testing out things in our game and so forth. But just know that's there. If you click onto it, it shows up here. This is where your error messages and things like that will populate. So we could take a look and debug these things. All right. So we're gonna click back on project. All right. So does everyone have the Unity up? Is there anybody who does not have it up? Cool. All right, so we could get started. So what we're gonna do is import the starter file from what you downloaded from that link. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on assets right here. And we're gonna go down to where it says import package. And the option you're gonna get is custom package. So you're gonna click on custom package. And then you're gonna get a bunch of options. So mine are right here. And so I am going to grab the starter file. And what's going to happen is once you click on open, it's going to give you a bunch of things right here that are part of the package. You're just going to make sure they all stay checked, and you're going to click on import. And then it'll take a second. And once it's all imported, shouldn't take this long, but once it's imported, we can begin. Cool, there we go. All the files showed up in your project section, and we are now ready to roll. Did everyone get that part taken care of with no issues? Cool. Raise of hands, how many of you guys haven't used Unity before? All right, Dennis. I guess we should probably use the little hand tool, but okay. I think there was a couple people who raised their hand. Let's see. Cool, good job, Dennis. Proud of you, man. All right, everyone else has touched this to a certain degree. Looks like it. How about you, Tony? I think that's you, right? Have you played with Unity, sir?
Just a little bit.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, all right, Abraham? Maybe not. Okay, all right. We'll just assume we're good. And all right, so once you've loaded everything in Unity right here, I'm just gonna go through some of the stuff that we've provided for you for this tutorial. But first thing what you're gonna do is double click into the scenes folder. All right, so we're gonna start there. So in Unity, everything is built off of scenes. All right, so just like a movie, there's many scenes to one movie. We have a scene where we can name it level 1, level 2, level 3, title page, game over, whatever we want. So what we did was we provided you with 3 scenes, and you'll probably see a 4th one called sample scene. That's default in Unity when you make a brand new project. So we're not really going to use that too much, but we will use the other ones. All right. And in order to make a scene in this section right here, you would right click, go to create, and then you're gonna get a bunch of options, but scene is right there. So what happens is I'm gonna click it, you don't have to, but I'll click it, and I could say, oh, let's say if I made a level 2, right? And now you've made a new scene. All right. So as we play this game itself, we're going to work with 3 scenes: the title page, a game over page, and a game scene where all the gameplay actually occurs. Okay. So let's all jump into the game scene for right now. So we double click game scene and nothing is here. It's the same. The difference right here is you'll see game right here. So you know that game is loaded. All right. And we're going to play with everything that is inside the game first, and then we're going to go out and do the rest. All right. So let's get rolling. So go back to your assets folder here in the project. And what we're going to do is start adding some pieces into the game. The one thing that I kind of want to talk about before we just start dragging stuff over is, do we all know the mechanics of how Doodle Jump is? Like how to actually play the game? Yeah.
Yes, I think we mostly got it, most of us.
Yeah. Okay, Leo, can you tell me what they are?
You start basically, and it's just continuously going where the Doodle Jump guy will, you can slide him left or right while as he goes up each step. You have to hit a certain amount of steps to get through each level, and you have to avoid falling down basically by going up, and you go left. You move the character left and right while hitting each step.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's pretty much the basis of the game, right? And then if you fall down, it's game over, and you keep playing, and it's more of an infinite style, right? So as we start putting stuff together, I'm going to come back to that question, and then we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into understanding what pieces we need to code, because we are going to do some coding today, and hopefully you guys all brought your C# game here. So let's do this. All right, so let's double click into images. We've provided you some images. This one here called body, we're going to use this as our player. Okay, and then we have a grass. Let's see, a green one. And what is this, orange? Yeah, and then we have the sky. All right, so in Doodle Jump, you have various different platforms, and they give you certain different jumping abilities. So we're just going to work with 2 right now, where one's like a normal size jump and one's like a extended jump. Okay, and then the sky is pretty straightforward. It's the background, and we're going to use that. Okay, if we click into prefabs, you're going to see a bunch of these things, all these objects here that we have actually pre-made for you to use. Okay, and the reason we made these for you is just to show you how it would look if you use more than one over and over again. So prefab just is saying I made all these changes to this one item, and now I could just use it anywhere, and it'll have the same properties. All right, so that's what prefabs mean. So that's that section. And then in scripts, we do have one script. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's see, let's go into, hold on, I just want to verify what this one is. Okay, yeah, we can do that. All right, so let's do this. Just use the prefab, and let's grab sky and go ahead and drag sky over into the hierarchy. All right, and then if you hit play, hopefully, hey, you see the sky. Pretty cool, huh? And that concludes our game. Thank you for showing up. No, I'm just kidding. So now we have background included. And the nice thing about how Unity handles this is when you just drag a sky over, it actually adds these 2 tools, these components inside the game object for you. So Unity knows that since it's an image, transform is there. And what transform allows is to really move the position of this item, okay? And it works in a sense where you know, it is a 3D type of world. So there's an X, Y, and Z. We're doing a 2D project, so we're not necessarily messing with the Z value, but it's available, right? Same thing with rotation and scale. So we could change the scale of an image by saying, hey, we want it 2 times as large or things like that. Or we could have it rotate if we wanted to. And the sprite renderer just allows us to have the image actually show up properly in the actual game itself. So nice thing is we don't have to deal with it. It's all set up and we're all ready to go. So once we have the sky in there, let's see. You guys could hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It looked a little buggy on my side. So just let me know if there's like a connection issue or anything like that. That way I could go back and talk about whatever we're gonna do, okay? Cool, all right, so let's take a look over here. And I just wanna take a look at, okay, all right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag over our player into the game. So let's go ahead and grab our player and put them here. Now, if you wanted to go and say, you know what, I don't really care for this little dot as the character, feel free to go grab any image that you would want to use as a character. There's a couple places that you can check out to get some assets. And here, let me just post one place real quick. And it's right here, where there's for royalty-free type of stuff. There's this part. This one here I like a lot because they do good work with this. All right, let's see. Let's go to chat. And then do this. There you go. All right. So if you wanted to grab something else, you can. If not, you're fine. You're all ready to go. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is, okay, we got a character. And if you actually hit play with the character, you're gonna kind of see something funny. It's like, wait, where'd it go? It's gone. Now, reason being is it actually, this player, since it's a prefab, it already has all the elements in there that make this have gravity and stuff like that. So let me just double check one thing. Okay. See, let's do it this way instead. Okay, so let's get rid of this sky for a second, because funny enough, if we push this button here, you're gonna see a couple things here. So this is kind of making it have an error. So we need to get rid of the camera as well. So there we go. So get rid of the camera and the background that we put in. And all you should have is a player and this piece here. And now if you hit play, okay, cool. There you go. And what we did in this prefab here is we moved the main camera into this object, so it will follow this character. All right, so that's like kind of like a shortcut of like, okay, how to get the camera to follow you. We could have written code to say, hey, I want you to take the X, Y, and Z value of the character and zoom out at a certain degree and then move around. But you could also just drag the main camera into the player and it will now just sit there and take a look at you, right? And then we put in the sky, and then we'll talk about garbage collector in a little bit in there, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it where everything moves up as your character moves up, all right? And the only thing that doesn't necessarily move up is the platforms themselves, all right? So what we're doing is we're creating like a parallax type effect where we have different things moving in different directions, which makes it look like you are actually moving up at great distances, okay? So it's kind of one of those like visual tricks that we learn to do when we build games, right? So now the thing is, when we actually click on the player itself, you're gonna see a bunch of things that have been added to this, right? And The first thing here is a box collider 2D. Now, what that does is in every game, we test out how things get collided with, right? That's like the basis of most games, right? I touch something and it interacts with me, right? So we use colliders in order to register these interactions, okay? So in 2D, when we're making a 2D game, we just use a 2D version. And the nice thing is, once you have that checked, it will have the ability to collide with. Now, in order for us to actually add physics, we have to add a rigid body. And that's what allows us to, if you look right here, you see where it says I could use a different type of mass, linear drag, angular drag, gravity, collision detection. Like there's all these things that you could really play around with that affects the actual physics of that object. All right. Now, you could just leave it set up as is, and that's what we did here. We just added it here, and it will now make it where it will fall. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this over here. There we go. Let's do it this way. All right. So this is the gameplay, and this is how the scene looks like. All right. So if I hit play, we're going to see, you kind of see how it's like moving downward. This is what's happening because we added physics to it. And in this world, it just endlessly falls, all right? But this side doesn't look like it's falling. Why is that?
Because you have the camera in the on that panel, so it's only seeing that. It's not seeing the. It's not focused on like the background. It's focused on that actual image.
Yeah, it's it's the actual camera itself. Well, I'm just trying to put this back here. Let's put it right there. Perfect. So the camera itself is capturing the background and the character. So and the camera, so everything is moving all at the same rate. So if everything moves at the same rate, it doesn't look like it's moving. However, when I showed you in the actual like the scene, how it looks, it is just dropping forever. And in Unity, you can drop forever. Okay, it's actually kind of really interesting. You could probably, I think the longest I've had it run while it was free falling was an hour, and it just kept going. It's not too exciting to see because, like you said, you just see a small little thing go down. But I was just curious, how long can it free fall? And I got to an hour before I got tired of watching. But just know that it's kind of neat to see that effect, right? And you would have no idea as the gameplay person that is actually happening. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of use that effect, but now we're gonna create platforms that allows us to go upward, right? Because so just like in any game, right, a platforming game or anything that has physics, right, it eventually needs to touch a floor, right? Something that is solid and immovable, right? So it's like us just walking on the ground, right? Like we don't just float through the ground endlessly, right? So those principles are still here, okay? Questions about that?
Abe asked a question in the chat.
Oh, yes. Let's see. What was the question? Let's see. Hold on. I got to pull this up. How do you create the player with physics? Oh, okay. Yeah. Good question. All right. So what I'm going to do is, let me just get rid of this real quick. So what I'm going to do is, all right. And then let's go here. So if I went here and just threw in the player, where's the player? Where'd it go? So is it showing up somewhere? Sorry, I just gotta find my, oh, that's way over here. That's why. 0, 0, 0. No, don't freeze. Don't freeze on me. Okay, sorry, hold on. I just want to. I think my Unity is freezing on me. Okay, cool. I'm back. Oh, there we go. That was pretty.
Nice.
Yeah, why is my camera acting up? Here, let me just do this real quick. Let me do this in a new scene. Oh, actually, I got sample scene. I don't save. That's fine. Perfect. Okay, so the question was all right, we got my player. We're all set. Okay, and right now the player itself isn't doing anything. And this is a horrible example because if this was, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I'm not freezing up, right? Because all your guys' faces are frozen.
Your audio isn't, but your camera is.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's troublesome. Okay, so that means you guys can't see my screen at all, right?
We can, but we can't tell if you're doing anything.
Oh, how about now? Did you see something happen?
Yeah, you just unplayed.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome. So you could see that. So then I'm just gonna keep going. Let me know if it like really freezes up and whatnot, and I may need to jump off and jump back in. So right now we have it where there's a character, right? So in order to actually add the physics, what you can do is right here, you would add the component. So when you click on add component, normally you would have a bunch of options like this. So I would click on physics 2D, and then you get all these options. It's actually pretty cool to see what you can do. So I would add the box collider, and then go back to the component, go into physics 2D, and then add the rigid body, which is, where are you, rigid body? There you are. All right, and now the key is your rigid body will not actually have physics until this is checked. All right, so you could actually have it, that object have physics, but not simulated. All right, now, and if you do that, then you actually have to apply it via code to make it work. So you would have to add like linear impulses and things like that. But if you have it checked, it automatically will have gravity. So that's how you would create the player with physics. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do the split screen again, and I'm gonna hit play. That way you can just see that it is now falling. All right, so that is how you would add physics to it. It's a good question. Any other questions?
Can you go through and show how you did the ridge?
The rigid
2D
body?
with it? Yeah, so I got the body in itself, and then now I want to add the rigid body 2D
Yeah.
in the inspector.
Yeah, so here, let me start, do this part one more time. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so I threw in my image right here. Cool, my body, right? Probably rename this at that point to player, right? But right here in the component, this is where I would add it. So add, go to physics 2D, and then what we're gonna do is add box collider, and that's there. Add component, physics 2D, and rigid bodies towards the bottom. There it is. And once you've added that, I kept all the default stuff for right now, and it will have everything apply physics onto it. So it'll have gravity in that. Now, the one thing that we do want to check if you're going to make this right here is see where it says constraints. You want to click on that, and you want to freeze the rotation in the Z axis. If you don't, what's going to happen is as we play the game, you might clip the platform and go into an infinite spin. And that's something that you probably don't want to have happen. But if you do, you can definitely keep that in as a feature for your game. You guys could still hear me, right?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, did that help you out?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions about the actual character itself? So what I'm going to do is just show you how we made this prefab, since we already have some of this built. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the sky and just see how I highlight under the player. It'll actually put it inside the player. So we have the player and then we have the sky. All right, now you're going to be like, well, the sky is covering my actual player. What we need to do is just change the depth of it in order for it to show up. Let's see. Oops. +1. So now it's in front. Now I'm going to show you this part right here. How would I know which way to go? See where it says 2D right here? If you actually click this and then use the hand tool, you could actually kind of check out the different. Oops. Let's go back to. There we go. And then I'm going to just. Hold on. Where did it go? Of course. There we go. Oh, it's not going to show it. Let's angle this. There you go. There we go. See that gap right there? That's what, before this was in front of it, so the camera saw just the sky and the item itself was behind it, right? So it wasn't able to be seen. So it's kind of nice to kind of play around with it in the 3D sense if you wanted to check that out. So now that you have the player there, what you can do is grab the main camera and then drag it into the player. And when you do that and hit play, now it looks like it's not falling. But if we look in the scene itself, let's see, I have to catch up to it. It's falling endlessly. So that's what the prefab was all about. It just did all of that for you. All right. Any questions about that? You guys could still hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to jump back into the actual scene itself. Let's go back. Let's see, what did we call it? Game? There you go. Yeah, sure. We'll save that. Okay, so I'm going to go to my prefab and let's just throw in the player. That way everything's all caught up again. Let's see, where am I? There it is. All right, so we now have our player kind of set up. All right, so now what we need to do is make a platform. So instead of using this prefab, what we're going to do is click in images and we're going to drag this platform into this area. So let's see, let's go with the green one, I guess. Just drag it over and you're going to get the name of the file. And so let's just call this platform. And then let's see, let's move it in a little bit right here. Oh. Okay. I don't know what's going on, but okay. So I got my platform. If you, next to the hand tool, if you click on this, it will let you move it around and so forth. It's really not. Okay, if you click, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one in, it has a rectangle with dots on each edge. That's called the transform tool. This will allow you to kind of stretch it out a little bit. So it could actually be like landed on. So do something like that. So if I hit play, what do you guys think will happen?
You're just gonna fall through.
Yeah. And that is very true, because right now we don't have anything in the actual piece, and it actually stayed right there, right? So what we're gonna do is actually add some pieces to it. Okay, so let's do this. So same thing with how we did the character. Let's click on the platform, and in here we're gonna add component and go to physics 2D. And what we're gonna do is add a box collider. All right, so let's just click on a box collider, and then let's just hit play. Let's see what happens. Hey, landed on it. Not pretty, it's not an exciting game, but at least we know we landed on it. All right, so did everyone get that to work? I am hoping that means yes. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is work on, sorry, my whole screen is just frozen, or screen with you guys' faces on there. Okay, all right, so what we're gonna do is let's get the actual player moving around before we have it interact with the actual platform. Okay, so Leo kind of mentioned this at the very beginning. You mentioned that as in Doodle Jump, you're able to move left to right, right? And then you are going upwards. So what we really have to understand when it comes to the mechanics of this game is the character itself is literally only able to move left to right. What makes it go upward?
The
I think-
steps.
Yeah, the steps or the platforms, right? So all we're gonna do is make a script and add it to the player that actually just moves it left to right, okay? So it's gonna be, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into scripts, and let's make our first script. Now, those of you who already have Unity set up and you have VS Code already working with it, that's perfect. If you don't have VS Code, it is totally fine. It will default to the actual scripts editor that it comes with, which is mono develop. So either way, totally works fine. If you wanted to switch to VS Code and you have it, you would have to go into your Unity file, go to preferences, and when it pops up, you would need to, let's go over here. You would need to go to external tools, and where it says external script editor, you want to change it to VS Code. You may have an option for any other code editor, like if you had Atom.io or if Visual Studio, you can also do those. If you don't have any of those, it's fine to default to the one that comes with Unity, okay? So now what we're gonna do is right click in the project section, click create, and go to C# script. All right, so what happens is once you fill that out, it's gonna create a script. We're just gonna call this bounce. Well, actually, sorry, not bounce. We're gonna call it, let's see, controller, because it's gonna control the character. Controller, there we go, and push enter. Now, I'm gonna just double click the script itself, and it should open up in VS Code for me. There we go. The actual script. We'll do that later. And this is what Unity will do as default. So we have a start function, and this is what happens when it first runs. So after you hit play, and wherever the script is, if that scene is first actually running, it will run anything inside of that function. So anything inside of here will run on load, okay? And then update is what's actually called once per frame. okay? And that's where it will just constantly keep calling it and allows you to check for variables and different conditions and so forth, and based on what type of game you're playing. For us, we're not necessarily needing to have to use update, but I'm gonna leave that there just so then you could kind of see the difference. So we're just gonna push enter afterwards, and we're gonna call something called void and fixed update, all right? And what fixed update does is it actually runs every few frames. So it's not running as much, and it's doing pretty much the same thing, right? So certain games, if you run it every frame and you're doing a check, it could freeze, you know, and or you could have lag. How many guys have experienced lag on video games? Well, I can't see your guys' faces because they're all frozen. I guess I have lag right now on Zoom. So, so this fixed update would, thank you, Mendoza, for raising your hand. So, you know, fixed update is just gonna kind of make it where it's gonna run every couple frames instead, okay? And so what we're gonna do inside of there is we're gonna actually grab the input value of you moving the character. So on a PC or computer, how do we generally move our character? I know we have some gamers in here. So what do you guys normally use?
Arrow keys.
WASD.
All right,
Yeah,
arrow.
WSD.
All right, WASD and arrow keys, right? Anyone use just the numeric pad, or is that too old school?
It's too old, JT.
Too old. Okay, all right. Oh, so maybe Tony. Hey, Tony, use the num key. I don't know if he's even
Yeah,
in here
but I'm
anymore.
old. I've played lots of games.
There you go, right? I played Oregon Trail with the num key. No, okay, all right. So it's too old, right? So in fixed update, what we're gonna do is grab that value. Now, the cool thing is, if you click into Unity, let's see, let me just double check. Okay, go ahead, finish. There we go, perfect. So file, let's see, if we click into, hold on, let me just double check it's here. Okay, yeah, cool. All right, so let's go to file, go to build settings, and what's gonna pop up is this right here. And we're gonna talk about the actual build settings in a little bit, but click into player settings. And what's gonna happen is this giant piece right here, I'm gonna close this out, is here. If you clicked on input manager right here, it normally has this, just this, right? So if you drop down access, you're gonna get all the different types of things that you can do, right? So notice how like it's like horizontal, vertical, fire 1, 2, 3, jump, mouse X, Y, scroll wheel, horizontal, vertical, and so forth, right? So if we open up horizontal, you're gonna see where this name horizontal lets you use the left and right key, all right? And this is the type of key or mouse button, and it changes the X axis. All right, and you could also get the motion from all joysticks, which is pretty cool. And so if we look at vertical, it will be down and up, and you're gonna get the information. And then if you look and you're like, wait, there's another horizontal. What is this? Right here. This is just for joysticks and then so forth. So there's a lot of options that this does. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull from horizontal, which also pulls WASD as well for us automatically, which is really neat because you normally would have to code it all out, but we could just say, hey, we want to grab the axis from horizontal, and it's gonna look for all those key combinations that are generally associated with movement in a horizontal fashion. All right, so we're gonna double click back into controller, so it pops up. So in here, what we're gonna do is grab the value. Now, in order for us to grab this value, we need to first define a variable. So actually up here, let's do this, push enter. And we could actually make it public if you wanted to see it in the Unity side, but I'll just say private, and then we're just gonna say move input, and then whoops, private float move input. And so in C#, you gotta make sure you define the actual type and then the variable itself, the name. So now that we have that defined in here, we're just gonna say move input equals, and this is where you do input dot, oops, why did you move input? Just input dot get access and horizontal. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna get whatever value is being displayed in the horizontal, and it's gonna actually change it. And actually, I'm gonna change this from private to public so you could see what it actually looks like on the Unity side, all right? So once you've done this, let's go ahead and click into Unity. Oh, wait. Oh, I should probably spell get properly. Gex access, get. Sorry, guys. There we go. Should be get access. Go back in here. There we go. And then, wait, why is that there? Get rid of you. Sorry, deleted you. There you go. So what we're gonna do is in the player, we're just gonna add controller. So have the player highlighted, and you could do this in two ways. One, you could just drag this over here onto the player, and it'll add down here, or you could drag this over and do it this way. All right, but that needs to be there. And so if we actually hit play while it's there, this is actually gonna be kind of neat. Right here, you see where it says move input? Go ahead and do your left and right. Do you see the values changing? And then if you did the A and the D, so it goes from a value of -1 to 1, right? So +1 is all the way to the right, -1 is all the way to the left. So this is why we have to use a float, because you see those huge decimal points that are necessary in here, okay? Did you guys all get that to show up?
Oh, so it's not registering in the movement because it's not a float. Is that correct?
Well, right now, I just put it into a variable called move input, right? And just to show you. But what we're gonna do is now convert it to something to make it actually move. I just wanted to show you what the values are actually being shown. So if you guys ever play with like gyroscopes or anything like that, you're usually working from a -1 to 1 type of number system. But the decimal points are like 12 to like 20 something digits long. And so even a small difference in that value could determine if your phone is being held flat or this way type of thing, right? Same thing as the longer you hold the right key down or the A key, right? It's gonna move to that way. So what we're gonna do is actually just take that value and apply it to our character, all right? So let's jump back into controller, and we need to do one more thing before we actually add the value here. So up to the top, underneath public float, move input, we could do public float, and then I'm just gonna say speed. And I'm gonna default it to 10F, and F stands for float, okay? So we're just gonna set the speed up there. And let's see, I'm gonna do it this way so you could see it a little bit better, okay? So once you've done that, then we're gonna jump in here and work on actually getting it to move. So let's see, actually, wait, we need one more thing, don't we? We need to,
Yeah, we need one more thing.
oh yeah, we need the rigid body. There we go. So after the float, let's make our rigid body. So this one, we can make it private. So they're gonna say private and then rigid body, and the R is capitalized. And then the body, the B in body is not. However, the D after the 2 is. And then we need to give it a variable. We're just gonna call it RB2D. Of course, that's what that did, RB2D. All right, for rigid body 2D. Okay, and then we need to get this component. So we actually do need to use the start feature. So we're just gonna push enter and then grab that value. So RB2D equals, and anything that's inside the inspector is called a component. So what we're just gonna say is, hey, we wanna find the rigid body component in the object that we're in, because we added the script into the player. It's just gonna look inside the player, okay? So we're just gonna say get components, and then the little arrow, and say the type, which is rigid body to capital D, and then close, open and close parentheses with a semicolon at the end. So what that's going to do is grab that rigid body, because what we're going to do is we need to manipulate the rigid body in order for us to move the character. So in any game, when you want a character to move, you always have to mess with the rigid body, okay? Be it a 2D game or a 3D game. So you can't get around it any other way, right? So rigid bodies are going to be your best friends, okay? So now that we've retrieved that, we can now finally say, yes, let's move, right? So what we're going to do is, so you go right here. So we're going to do RB2D dot, and what we're going to do is we're going to change the velocity, okay? And in order for us to change the velocity, we need to create a new velocity, all right? So being that we are doing this in a 2D game, we're gonna pull something that's called a vector2, okay? So what that means is it's only gonna grab the X and the Y value, and you're gonna manipulate those pieces. Now, if you're making a 3D game, you would do a vector3 and include the Z axis, okay? So for this here, we're just gonna say new, and we're gonna say we're gonna make a new vector2, and inside that, we need an X value. So we are moving horizontally, all right? So this is where we finally say we could use move input. We're just gonna times that by the speed that we defined at the top. Feel free to change the speed to whatever you want, okay? We just put 10 in there just so then it's a little bit, you know, you can make it faster, slower. It's really up to you, right? And then, do we wanna mess with the Y value when we move our character?
Maybe not just yet.
No, right? Because remember, this is just the player, right? So the player itself could only move left and right. It only moves up when it interacts with a platform, all right? So for us, we want to say, okay, we want to maintain the same Y value that it had, because we're not changing that. And in order for us to do that, we just say RB2D dot velocity dot Y. And it'll just keep that value constant. Okay, so once you've done this, you should be able to go back to Unity and get that to load, hit play, and you will land. However, now you should be able to move. What? Oh, that was kind of crazy, wasn't it? There was some craziness happening there. I'm not really sure what happened. Oh, I'm spinning. My actual character is spinning out of control because it fell off the edge, okay? Now, in order to fix that, we go to player, let's go to rigid body and constraints, and we gotta click the Z. If we freeze the Z axis, it will not fall to your, it won't do that anymore. See how it didn't do it anymore? Now, the reason being, why would it flip? Take a look at my character.
I'd say just because it says full physics.
Well, yeah, but my character is a capsule. It's not boxed, right? So the second I touch a corner, it's curved. What happens, right? It's just gonna tip over. right? Just like in real life, right? If you roll the ball towards the end, it would spin and fall down, right? So
Yeah.
it's doing its job, but we just want to say, hey, we don't care about the Z, so don't do that, right? And it won't spin out of control. Now, if your game required that, then feel free to leave that there, okay? Cool, did we all get that going? Cool, all right. Well, I think we're moving pretty good. So now let's add some bounce to this, all right? So you guys need a quick 5-minute break? Oh, we're good. Let's see, I can't see everyone's. It looks like everyone's good. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so we keep going. So let's go ahead and just make our script to make you bounce on the platform, okay? So let's see, inside our script, let's right click, go create, C# script. We're gonna call this bounce. All right, so bounce itself, this is the interesting part about how we would handle bounce, okay? When you are jumping on the platform itself, or falling onto the platform, we're gonna try to trigger a collision, right? So if we all jumped, we will eventually fall and touch the ground, right? So what we're gonna do is apply that same theory of like, hey, our character is gonna fall, touch the ground, and then we're gonna have it propel us upward, right? So that's the goal. So in order for us to do that, we gotta make sure in our platform, we have it, we have our box collider 2D. And what we want to do is move this bounce script in here. So let's go ahead and move this bounce script. Come on. Oh, there we go. Cool. Perfect. All right. Now let's open up our bounce script. And what we're going to do is we're going to play with something called on collision enter. All right. So what's going to happen is you're just going to say, hey, if I collide with this item, I am going to propel myself upward. Right. So in order to do that, the collision pieces, the fix update, all these things are in the Unity docs and just stuff that we use all the time. So this is where we're kind of pulling some of this stuff from. So let's go ahead and make our function called private void and then on collision. So the O and the C are capitalized, enter, the E is capitalized, and then 2D, all right? Now, what's important to know about this is when you do collide with using the collision and you're trying to register it, you have to make sure the item itself that's colliding to it is being passed into this function. So in the docs, it says that you have to have a 2D collision variable passed into this. So in order for us to do this, we just say collision 2D, and then we give it a variable name. So we usually just call it collision, right? So it'll look like something like this. Now, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a quick debug.log. So we're just gonna say debug.log with the capital L, you collided with me, all right? And we're just gonna test this out and see if it even registers, okay? So let's click back in here. And let me know if I'm going too fast, folks. We have some of our, like Zach, Angel, and Joseph will kind of help you guys out and also tell me if you guys need me to slow down. All right, so if I hit play and go to the console, hey, you collided with me. You should have that pop up. And here, I'll do it one more time.
Hop off the edge and try to run to the side, JT.
Wait, that's not what you told me to do. What do you want me to do?
Go off the platform, but try to hit it again on the way down on the side.
Oh,
Just stick to it. That's what I was just playing with.
there you go. It triggered twice, right? Now, if I actually moved my player, let's see, like on the platform itself, it triggers, all right? So hey, you're pretty much in my bubble, right? Maybe that's a better debug log. Hey, you're in my bubble, man. All right, so now that we're like, okay, cool, we have registered the event. So what we're gonna do is, let's go back into bounce. Let's make it bounce. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a public variable at the top, and public variables allow you to mess with it on the Unity side. So if you want to mess with it, you can, you know. And then I'm just gonna call this, so what should we call it? Bounce, oops, public. We're gonna make this a float, bounce force, I guess, something like that. And then we're gonna default this to 600F, but this is gonna give you the ability to change it on the other side so you can play around with it, okay? So in here, we're now gonna have, we don't necessarily need to collide with me, but I'll leave it on, right? And we're just gonna say, hey, let's just go and get this going. So what we're gonna do is just say, yeah, let's do this first. Collision dot game object dot get component. Because what we're gonna say is we're gonna grab the component inside the object that's colliding with me. So what's colliding with the platform?
The player.
The player, right? So what this collision.game object is getting is, that's the player. That's the reference to the player, all right? So we're just saying, hey, we want the player's rigid body because we need to change the Y value of it, okay? So we're gonna say get component and then rigid body 2D, just like we did before. And then we're just gonna do everything right here. So we're gonna add force. So may the force be with you. Let's add it here. Get it? A pretty good joke right there. All right. So in this sense, when we're adding force, we have to do it with a vector 3. So we're just gonna say vector 3 dot up. And what that does is that literally makes it where it's a x, y, and z of 0, 0, 1. Okay. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna times that by bounce force. Bounce force. Let's see. Since this is getting a little longer, there we go.
I'm a little confused as to why you're using vector 3 still out there.
This one here, because I was just cheating, and add force requires a vector 3. So right here, let's do this. Vector 3 dot up is equal to 0, 0, 1. So which is x, y value, and the z value. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna multiply that, and then it will add the force via physics to it to move it upward and project it upward. I believe it is 0, 0, 1. Should double check that. I'll check it in a second. But when you do that, it's kind of like a shorthand. We'll just put it that way.
I gotcha.
So when we go in here, where'd it go? There we go. So it should save. Let's see. Rigid by, oh, I capitalized the B. I don't know why they didn't do it that way. It's like everything else you capitalize, it's a rigid body. So now, ideally, hey, you're bouncing. And you're able to move left and right and fall to your impending doom. Pretty cool, huh? Now check this out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have it run. Then I'm gonna go back to the scene. Let's zoom out a little bit. There we go. Isn't this gnarly? So literally we're saying the player is what's actually being affected. What's inside the player? The camera, the sky, and we'll talk about the garbage collector in a little bit. So that literally means all of that's moving upward. So when you do that, the background never feels like it's moving, but it actually feels like the platform's moving, right? So if we go back to the game itself, right? Doesn't it look like we're jumping away from the platform, right? Well, we are, right? But it's just the platform staying in one spot.
JT, I have two problems.
Okay.
Problem number one,
Mhm.
I have two audio listeners. I don't know where they're coming from.
Oh, get rid of the camera. You have one too many cameras.
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
That was my fault because I should have showed you the prefab afterwards. But yeah, if you left the camera there and added player, then there's two cameras and each camera has an audio listener in it. So it's just saying you have too many audio listeners.
Can I see the code again? I just need
Oh,
to get
yeah,
the
yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Sure. Let's do this. What was it? Bounce. There you go. And so you could play with that 600 if you wanted to. And what those of you who got it to work, add some more platforms and see what happens.
Okay. Get component. Okay, that fixed that, but that error is new. Let's see. Play. Okay, I'm getting a yellow error that says the reference script of the behavior game player is
we'll clean that up. So what happened was in the prefab, it actually we had a script in there, but we deleted it, but we forgot to take out the reference. So we'll clean that up for you. But so like for example, when you click on player and you scroll down, see where it says right here, it's missing the script. If you just remove this component, you won't get that error.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Did everyone get that to go? Let's add another platform. Just gonna copy paste. I'm gonna add one right above it, like right there. That sounds cool, right? Good way to test this out.
This can't go bad at all.
I feel like this is not what we want, right?
Darn, I'm getting some Wii Sports vibes from this. Anyone remember
Yeah.
that tennis game?
There you go, right? So now, okay, so in games, what would normally happen with this platform?
It would probably jump through it.
Right? And then you're able to land on it. So we need to create the ability for it to jump through the platform and then register it on top. Okay. Now, so in order for us to actually do that, what we need to do is click in the platform. So I'm gonna get rid of this platform right now, the one that I put on top. So I just want to play with this one. And in here, we're gonna add a component, right? And the nice thing about this is in Unity, they actually already made this component for us. So if we do a search for platform, you're gonna see something called Platform Effector 2D. All right, so when you click into it, and then, oh yeah, so you're gonna get this little message here. So what you have to do is in the box collider, you see where it says used by effector? You check that. And now this here is kind of set up, and you see this really cool looking piece. So what that's doing is that's going to create the effect that you can go through it from the bottom, but when you land, it's going to be treated as a platform. So the way that this registers is at this 180 degrees, if it's coming from that type of angle, and it will land on it and it'll be treated as a solid or whatever you're doing. All right. So now if you copy and paste this and then do this part right here, then give that a shot. Oh, I know, kiddo. I'll be there in a bit, okay? All right, I'll be there. I'll be there. Sorry, guys. He's trying to tell me it's dinner time, man. I guess we should all get going, right? You guys don't need me. All right, so once you have this here, you should be able to hit play. And hopefully it works. Oh, okay. Cool. Some things happened. I was not expecting it to happen so fast. Now, you kind of saw it like do a little super too, like it went pretty crazy, right? And the reason being is, here, let's see. I wonder if I could do it this way, just so that we could take a look at it. No, I don't care for the game. It's more the scene. So the second it touches this next one, it just kind of like, look at that. It's just going crazy, right? Now, the reason why it's doing that is because anytime it touches and collides a platform, guess what it's doing? Let's take a look at our code. In our bounce code, what did we say we wanted to do? On collision, add force, right? So it's still colliding with underneath the platform as it's going through it. So right when you touch it, it's gonna shoot upward, right? So we need to change that. So we got to add a little bit of logic into this before we actually have it go add that force. So what we're gonna do is add a condition right here. So let's do an if statement, okay? So we're just gonna say if, and we're gonna do collision dot game object dot get component. At this point, I probably should have made a variable, but it's okay. Rigid body 2D. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna say, hey, the velocity dot y is less than or equal to 0.3f. All right. So what we're just gonna say is, hey, if the y value of the velocity is at this very low value, we know that you have gone through the actual platform, because when we're increasing and trying to jump through a platform, the actual velocity is being increased, right? So we know it's going to be over this value of 0.3, all right? Now you could tweak it based on how well you want it to do, but we know that this will just shoot right through, and then as it falls down, the velocity is trying to get back to zero, its natural state. Okay, so we're just gonna say, hey, okay, as long as it's equal to or less than that value, we know you are falling. So then we know we could register it to jump again. So then what we do is just move this value into here, and we could hit play, and we could give it a shot. See what happens. I'm gonna hit swing. Okay, cool. That's a little bit better, right? And it's not like shooting me up like crazy. Now, you're probably wondering, where the hell is this other platform showing up from, right? And it's the garbage collector doing its job. So we'll talk about that in a second, just so then you understand what's happening, okay? The garbage collector piece, we actually left the whole code in there, and it was the only code piece that came with the starter file, because it does go over things that I wasn't sure I could get through in this time frame that allowed us to kind of get to this point. All right. So before I jump into the garbage collector, do you guys did you guys get this to work where it's bouncing and it's not going too crazy high? All right. So if you wanted to play around with it for a second, which you should, go ahead and make a few more platforms and move them around. Right. We do have in the prefabs one already made that does that. So you could move that up too if you wanted to, and use that one. It's really up to you. This one doesn't do anything fancy, I don't think. Oh, did I switch the? I did.
You did. Yeah, I just realized that now.
I'm like, wait a minute. So
yeah, it won't matter besides the script.
Yeah.
No scripts attached.
Oh, yeah. So if you do use that one, you need to add the bounce script to it. So I'll remove this component.
Just to make sure, the bounce script is inside the player or inside the box or the platform?
Oh, the platform.
Okay.
Because it's the platforms. Oh, it's a prefab, so I'd have to do it down here. But it's the platform's job to open prefab. I believe. There we go. That's how you do it. Okay, I could show you guys that. If you want to use the prefab, you click on prefab, you could click open prefab, and what it does is it actually opens up everything in here that you can mess with, and you scroll down and you'll see, oh, the script not in there, drag the bounce script there, and it'll now use that script for you to play that game. And just to go back to what the question was, the platform itself controls the Y, okay? So all bouncing needs to be done by the platform. Now, if you click on these platforms, being that we changed the bounce force here, you could make one 1,000 and make one like 50 if you really wanted to. I mean, it's up to you how you kind of play with. So it's like, oh, that's pretty good. Oh, yeah. Let's see, hold on.
Just take off the garbage collector for right now, Jateen. Just turn it off.
I know, right? Yeah, here, let's do this. Garbage collector, you are done. So the bottom one's gonna propel me, but then when I'm bouncing, you see it just shaking? It's just not enough. Right? So then the cool thing is while it's running, if you actually wanted to, let's see, is that the platform that has the low value? No, this one. You could change it to 200. Oh, it's not gonna let me change it on the fly. So then you could test it out, right? So this is where you get to kind of play around with it, move them around however you want. That's 200. Right? So I made them public here, so then you could play with it that way, okay? So once you feel like, hey, you got a good idea of it, you could always convert them to private, so then they're not accessible on this side. Really up to you, okay? So I'm gonna put it back to, I think it was 600, because that seemed to work pretty well. Put this to 600, cool. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the spring, which prefab, right? So the spring prefab, unfortunately, I used the wrong one here, so I'm gonna just get rid of these two for right now.
Jateen, I think I ran into. So, can I share my screen because I'm not sure how to explain this.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
go for it. There you go.
So, all right, just play it real quick.
Oh, it's a beautiful game, man. I love it.
And
I like the game
You-
already.
It's beautiful. I love it. What's wrong with it?
Can I fund it?
wasn't it supposed to bounce on the first platform?
No, it's supposed to do that.
Okay. All right. So then, never mind. I'm overreacting.
No.
No,
Hey.
no. I was messing with you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jalbert.
Go ahead and share your screen again, man.
You forgot to lock your character in the Z-axis.
Yeah. So click on player
So click on player.
in the hierarchy. Yeah, and then towards in the box collider. Actually, sorry, in the rigid body 2D. You're going to see something called constraints. It's towards the bottom, right above info. I need my annotate. Where is it? Wait, why is it not letting me annotate?
Dang it, I don't think they let us annotate. It's right there, constraints, right there, yeah.
Okay, and then yeah, click on, there you go. And now try it.
Okay. So now my bean falls normally. Okay.
There
So
you
yeah.
go.
All right. Stop.
Perfect. All right, cool. So let's see. Now I gotta find my share screen. There we go. Share screen. What is this? Number 2. All right, cool. All right. So now that we have that set in there, I'm gonna swap this out just so then I can show you the spring. You don't have to, but I made the mistake of picking the wrong color. So the spring is actually going to be this different color. So in here, the spring itself would use a different script. And all the script does is change the value, okay? So you can make another script that does that, or you could go ahead and in this prefab, change it where it hard codes the value and then you're good to go, all right? So I'm just gonna show you how I would do that. So in the prefab, if we click on spring, go ahead and click on open prefab. And then now we're inside this prefab, all right? So you could actually change the image right here. So if you felt like, hey, I have a better looking platform, go ahead and just drag it over here and highlight it in here and it'll swap it out, okay? We're gonna go towards the bottom. See where it says it's missing a script? Let's go ahead and grab scripts and drag over bounce and then change 600 to 1,000. Okay, and once you've done that, you're gonna see in the hierarchy, this arrow right here where my arrow is in the left, you click that one time and it gets you back out into the normal view. And now that spring, if you click on it, we'll have this script with 1,000 already in there. So now when you hit play, you have a game where it will do a bigger jump in comparison to the other one, right? So this isn't as helpful. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna do this and move it. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do.
You were on the right tool.
Was that the right tool? Why is it?
Yeah,
look
you're
so different?
the other one to the left. You were on it originally before you switched to the scale tool.
Oh, there we go. Oh, but why is it on?
No, the one, yeah. You trying to move them?
Yeah, but it's
the one next to my hand.
Oh, sorry. That's what. Sorry, it moved over. There we go. Let's see. Okay, let's put them up here, and then to the left a little bit. Cool. So now, if you're like, all right, cool, boom, boom. Hey, that's a pretty good jump there, right? and it's gonna go, and it's just like, I think I could fall downward too. There we go. Right? So it's gonna allow for multiple jumps. So in Doodle Jump, they have those super big springs, right? Where it just like flies you past all sorts of stuff, right? So we could use this spring that were created and have it do that, okay? Now, you could also make this into another script, which in the final version we called it Big Bounce. And all we did was change the value to 1,000, okay? That way, then if it's easier to understand it in two different scripts, you can. But if you wanted to use the same script, you could do it this way and have that value set up. Questions about that? Nope. Cool, awesome. All right, so then what I want you guys to do is click on the garbage collector. And if we turn the garbage collector back on, you're gonna see this bar highlighted. And what this bar does is it's gonna, since it's part of the player, all of that moves up. So the platforms don't move. So what eventually will happen is this will collide with each one of these items. So the job of this collector is when it interacts with it, it's gonna make a new platform above it. Okay, so then we added some randomization to it. That way we make it where it will start moving things around, okay? So like, for example, you click on garbage collector and right here, notice how it has the player, platform, and spring prefabs already loaded for you. But let's open up the destroy script. This one here. Now, the one thing that we tried to do was we tried to put a ton of notes in here. That way you could get an idea of what's happening, okay? So what we did was we had the player, had the platform, and the spring prefab. And we just put those in. So if you wanted to make extra power-ups and so forth, you just have to make another one and call it that variable, okay? But the important piece that's in here is you guys are already done this. So we're just saying, hey, when this garbage collector touches anything, we're gonna figure out first, what is it? So this one here, it's called platform. Then we want to do the following items in here. And what's happening in here is, see, I'm just trying to see if I could read it all for you. We'll have to do this. What it's gonna do is it's first gonna pick a random number between 1 and 8, all right? And it's gonna go into here and destroy the object that it collided with. And then it's gonna make a new one. And it's gonna make the spring prefab. But notice how here, the statement right here is saying if the random range is equal to 1. So this is a way of creating a probability. It's almost like a very, like, actually it'd be a very good loot box for you, right? 12.5%, that's actually odds in your favor, right? So we're saying when you interact with a platform, like the garbage collector touches a platform, there's a 12.5% chance that it will create a spring and put it in the game, okay? And in order to make the game, that item, you have to use the word instantiate, and it just makes that version. And then it's just setting the Y and, oops, let's go over here. All this math here is literally saying, hey, pick a random range from minus 5.5 to positive 5.5 for the X value. And then we're gonna add the Y. So we're gonna take the existing Y value of the player, so your character, right? Because your Y value is way up here, right? Because in your game, your player is moving upward, right? So it could be 10,000 at one point, right? So it's gonna take that and it's gonna add 10 plus a random range between 0.4 and 1. And then this part here is to avoid what what Arthur did about spinning out of control, okay? So this makes it where you'd mess with the rotation. We don't care for the rotation, so we just use the default value for it, okay? But this here, you could tweak with these values. We just added some randomization to it, just so then to show you how you can start tweaking with all this stuff. Okay. Oh yes, it is actually 1 in 7 because it will not hit 8. You are correct. Hugo, good job. But we will make that change on here. But if it's not 1, then it's just gonna make it's just gonna move the object, because we don't want to destroy the platform and then remake the same platform. That's a waste of resources. So if it does happen to hit 1 in the randomness, then it's going to destroy it because it's going to swap it with a spring. But if not, it's just going to move the that platform to the top, right? And then if it's not a platform and it's a spring, it's going to do the same thing, except if it hits the magic number, it's going to make what you call it, let's see, where is it, a platform type thing. Good job, kiddo. Right, so we just added this in here, that way then it makes it a little bit easier for you guys to play with. But all this is doing is adding that platform. Now in this game, we don't want to add 1,000 platforms and have your level mapped out. We want this to be endless. So when we add a bunch of these, it allows us to kind of play around with this stuff. Now, let's see. Actually, with the garbage collector on, if we hit play, and then I'm going to jump to the game scene. Oops, I probably need to split this up so we could see it, because I may have to actually play it. And then let's click on garbage collector. See how like it's, there you are. Like, and then I'm gonna move it slightly, and then see how like it keeps adding it to the top, right? You saw how like then it just added them back up. So that's how it makes it go endless. Questions about that?
But the
Did you
same
guys
concept as a construct, pretty much.
Yeah. Can you make a 1 block mode? Not really sure what you mean, 1 block. Like there's only 1 block that populates over and over again?
I think he means that in the fact of like having it to be where it's super small to where.
I think I got it.
Okay,
So
cool,
if you
yeah.
don't want to like jump to the next platforms, you'll just have to mine that block that you're standing on and infinite to just go on there. You just place a spring, it'll just generate you a spring, and then you just place it there and it'll go to the next platform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get what he's talking about.
Yeah. So yes, that's the answer. Good one.
Gotta
Yeah,
hope your timing's right and you got enough spring.
exactly, right? So now you get to kind of play around with it and really get that going. Now, we do have about like 20 minutes left, and I can show you some extra pieces to it, but I did want to give you guys some time to play with this, and then I can go to the next piece. So are there questions or anything like that? Kind of covered a lot, but for the most part, hopefully you guys kind of got a good idea of how the pieces are moving around in here.
What part allowed you to phase through the platform on the ascension part?
Yep. So it's this called the platform effector 2D. So here, I'm gonna make one here. So I'm gonna go to images. I'm gonna grab, wait, we made the springs, the green one. There we go. All right, so what we can do in here is we're gonna grab, first we need a box collider 2D. And then we could add the platform effector 2D. You're gonna get this little message because in the box collider 2D, you have to click on use by effector right here. in order for that to actually occur.
And it's that used by a vector that's going to allow it to phase through.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. And the nice thing is, see right here where the mouse is, use one way, right? So this is how you want it to go through one way only type of thing. Now let's see, when true, an object considered moving up through the effector won't collide. However, an object considered moving down will. So this is why we are able to then test it falling down, right? However, you could, what if the platform was like a wall and you wanted to go through the wall, right? So this is where you could kind of play around with, do you want it to do that way or not? And things like that, right? You know how you have hidden walls in games and so forth, right? So you get to kind of play around with that piece where you could go through it, but you can't come back, or, you know, things like that. But that's how you would do that piece. Delete this. Oh, any other kind of questions or anything like that?
I have a small question.
Yeah.
When you play the game and go back to the scene tab while the game is playing, is there a way to lock the camera in the center of the scene tab so it doesn't jump out and you can't follow along the player of the camera?
You could if the camera wasn't moving.
Oh, okay.
It's because the camera is actually moving constantly because it's grouped with the player that it's doing that. So
got it.
Yeah. But what you could do is, if you did that, right, you could click on the camera, the player, and push F, and it will zoom back into it. So if I go to scene, push the player, and push F, I believe it will let me. But I have to keep pushing F because it's moving so fast.
I see. Yeah.
So it is possible to do that, but it's just solely because now I've lost everything. Where are you? There you are. It's because the camera is actually moving as well, right? So if you had this really long monitor that's vertically horizontal, then yes, you could see it at least move a little bit. Oh, any other questions or anything like that? Cool. All right. So I guess we could. You guys want to play around? Did you add more pieces in there? Made it a little bit more entertaining and so forth. Cool. All right. So let's make it where we let's see. We could do.
I do the score piece.
Yeah, let's do the score piece. I think we have enough time for that. So, okay, cool. All right. So what we're gonna do for this is we're gonna make a game manager in here. So in here we're gonna hit save. So a game manager in Unity is just something that kind of holds on to information that we need from scene to scene usually. So in here, we're actually just gonna make it in this scene. So we're gonna right click and go to create empty. And all a game manager is an empty game object. So I'm just gonna call it game manager. And we now have this. So what we're gonna do is actually now make our game manager script, okay? And so I'm gonna go into scripts and we're gonna right click, create C#. So I'm just gonna call this game manager script because I think that's what it was called in the final file. And then what we're gonna do is double click that. Let's open this up in Unity, in VS Code. There you go. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some values, okay? So we're gonna end up using a canvas element and a text element in UI. So what we're gonna do is up here where we have our using statements, is gonna say using Unity engine.ui. And that's because we're gonna use the UI piece of Unity. So we have to make sure we are requesting access to it. And what we're gonna do is make some public variables. So it's a little bit easier for us to drag around, okay? So we're gonna say public text with the capital T. We're gonna call this score. And then what we're gonna do is call public string high score. Score. There we go. And we'll start with those first, okay? And then all we're gonna do is just say, every time a score is kind of made, we're going to save it to high score. So we're just gonna dump this into update. So we're just gonna say high score equals score.text, all right? So it's the text value inside this object. So that's it for the script part. So I'm gonna jump back into Unity. Let's click on, let it do its thing. Click on Game Manager, drag in the script. There we go. And notice how it's gonna say there's none here. So we need to make a text object, all right? So in the hierarchy itself, we're gonna right click and we're gonna go to UI and text. And if you click that, it's actually gonna make a canvas and it's gonna make the text itself. Now, if you scroll out, you can be like, wait, why is it so huge? If we hit play, how does this look like? What? Why is it so tiny down there? Right? So the way Canvas operates is Canvas is, think of it as it's gonna fill your monitor size, okay? So anything in there will get resized based on whatever screen you're on, okay? So if we highlight the text, it may look pretty large, but it's really small. Look how much we have to zoom in just to see it, right? So what we're gonna do is right here in the inspector where it says text, we're gonna change this to score. Let's see, then yeah, I think that's what we would change it to, right? Score, sounds about right. And then let's do 60 with the font size. And then you won't see it anymore. So what we're gonna do is we have to resize it a bit. There you go, got score. However, I don't really want the score at the bottom left. We usually want it up in the top right or something like that. So what we're gonna do is play with the rectangle transform tool, the rect transform right here. So if you click where you see this kind of crosshair thing right here, your anchors are gonna pop up. So a really cool trick is if you hold Shift and Alt, and it's Shift and Option for Macs, you're gonna see the anchors change. I'm gonna pick the top right and just have it set there. So now score will pop up there. So if I hit play, I will know my score is gonna be at the top right. Okay, and now it's like, okay, well I probably need to move it in a little bit, right? So let's go ahead and, oops, click on text, do this, move it in a little bit, just so then there's some breathing room, okay? Now that we've done that, what we need to do is click back into Game Manager, and we need to drag over this text into the score. That way we know that it's there. And that's just connecting it, all right? So now the Game Manager has access to keeping track of the score based of there. But right now it's not necessarily really helping us out to actually add score. And that's what we're gonna do next. Just wanna give you guys a second to catch up, and then we'll kind of go from there. You guys ready for the score piece? Yep. Cool. Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's see. Why is that object reference? Okay, well, let me clear this to make sure. Okay, cool. We're good. All right. So well, we will do this in. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and do this in the controller and just let the player actually kind of deal with keeping track of the score. Okay. Now, there's various ways you can make the score count. You can put it on the platform and then give it point values if you wanted to do it that way, or if you wanted to just grab it from how high they're going. Okay. So we're just going to kind of play around with it with actually, which way should we? Yeah, we'll do it with the Y value of your character. Okay. So let's open up our controller. So in our controller right now, we have our fixed update, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make it where in our update, we are constantly checking for the Y value, and we're going to see and change the score based off that. Okay. So inside our update, let's go ahead and do our if statement. So we're just going to say if rb2d dot velocity dot y is greater than 0, and if your transform dot position dot y is greater than top score, then we're going to do some stuff. Except I messed up because I forgot to define top score at the top. So we're going to do that real quick because this will error out on us. So I'm going to scroll up. There we go, just a little bit. So we're going to just say private float top score equals 0.0f. And then we are going to need access to the text again. So let's do this. Public text score text. Cool. I think we'll be able to get the score done just in time. So once we have that, then we should be able to add our logic where we do the following. Inside this statement, we're just going to say top score equals transform dot position of y, right? So we're really just replacing it. So it's just more like how high did your character actually go and so forth, right? Based on its y. And then after that statement, what we're going to do is we're just going to round it off, okay? Because it is a float at that point, the top score, because that's what we called it, because the y value is going to be decimal. So we're just going to round it off. That way it makes our lives a little easier and also on the screen, right? So we're just going to say score text dot text equals, and then we're just going to say score space, and then we're just going to do some math. So math f dot round, and we're just going to round our top score and then convert it to a string. And the reason we have to convert it to a string is this part here actually makes it, leaves it as a number. And then we got to change the string because we're adding two strings together to then put into a text object, which takes a string. You don't do the two string part, you're going to get an error and all things are going to start acting wonky. Okay. So once you've done that, we could go back to here, and then we got to go to our controller, which is in player. Let's see, where are you, controller? Oh, wait, hold on. Did I forget the, oh yeah, I did. forgot using Unity engine.ui. Here you go. I'll leave it on this for a second longer. Do you guys need it? Oh, actually, you know what I could do also, just so then you have it. Let's see, where's the chat? Oh, there you go. The chat. There you go. Some good old code via chat. All right, so now we're in here. So this should work out. Let's see, go back to player. And then right here, it says score text is none. You got to move the text over because it needs access to it. And once you do that, you should be able to hit play. And hey, check me out. I'm scoring. Yeah. Oh, denied. So you do still need to tweak with some of this to make sure you don't get blocked like that, right? But for the most part, you should be able to get at least the score going to that point and just kind of getting your game a little bit more to a game, okay? We are actually just 3 minutes left. So what would happen next is, oh, thank you. What next would be is to add a game over piece. And then the scenes. So what I'm gonna do is, let's see, I need to open up, let me open up the file. Let's see, where are you? So this is the final file that was provided to you guys. Let's see, I'm just gonna make sure it's, well, that's just, wow, that did not load right. Huh, weird. That doesn't look right. Oh, yeah, that didn't load right at all. Hey, Joseph, do you have the final version up?
Yeah, I do. I can share real quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, here, I'm gonna stop sharing so you can share. So the final version that you can download and look at will have the scenes connected, and then it will go ahead and play the game real quick. So it will allow you to go from the main screen to play the game, and then go ahead and just like fail after a little bit. And then it'll tell you what the score is, and then you could play it again and so forth. Now, the cool thing about this is I want to show you how you actually trigger a game over. So go ahead and stop the play for a second, Joseph, and then go to the game scene and click on the 3 game over pieces once you've zoomed in a little bit. So when you look at this final scene, the final version, you're gonna see one on the right side. So that means you can't go off the screen, okay? And then you'll see one on the left side, and then you'll see one at the bottom. So all you're doing is creating collisions on game objects and saying, hey, if you touch me, you're dead. And that's all that's happening, okay? So, you know, and the thing about game design and everything like that, this is what it's all about. Creating these invisible walls that you interact with to have something happen, right? So if you take a look at that final file, that's what that has. You know, I do apologize that I didn't get through every single piece for it. We got pretty close, but take a look at that file, and then just know that you could reach out to me, ask questions or anything like that, if based on the stuff. But just kind of want to open it up to questions if you have any questions. If not, you guys are all done for now.
Go ahead, Mendoza.
I was gonna say is how do you get the game over barriers on the right and left to kind of move along So it doesn't come to a point where you jump so high where you can kind of just jump over the game over. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, since you have it up, Joseph, can you leave your screen on?
Yeah, my bad.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
What was the question?
So the question was,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so for let's look at the objects of game over and game over 1. How do you get those to kind of move along with the player, so it doesn't come to a point where the player gets so high that they can just jump over the game over?
Well, you could probably do something to where it's like how you probably have to look more into like how you would do some comparisons to where how far something could be from what it is. So maybe this could be something to where it's frozen maybe on this x-axis right here, but it can only go up. So maybe there's something to where, we can do some messing with the freeze of this or something, or maybe because right now you're right. I mean, the higher you go up, the more you can go out of boundaries. I mean, if you really wanted to, you can just do a simple fix of just doing the bots collider and just doing this all the way up to however far up you think that they can even get to. That's just a simple fix.
You could also, if you wanted to, go ahead and just drag that into the player, from the hierarchy, the game over. If you throw it into the player, into the actual player.
Oh, it wasn't in there.
There you go. Now it'll travel with the player. Right. So we left it outside of it because you get to create the feeling of falling if you wanted to, right? So then it gives you a little bit of time instead of like instant game over, right? So this is where you could kind of play around it. But if you wanted it to be where like, no, if you just go off the screen, you're done, then you would want to move everything into the player. So then it all moves together, right? And then as long as it all moves together, then once the player falls off the piece, then it could kind of interact and so forth. So there's various ways to kind of tackle it, but it's easier to control when it's outside the player just because of that. But you could add some code that takes the Y values and X values. You can stretch it really long if you wanted to, and things like that. So the cool thing about this collider piece right there is you could have that. Heck, you could even have it where it's just super wide like this at the bottom, and there's no way you're gonna go all the way that way, right? And it creates the cool falling effect, right? So you get to kind of tweak around at that point how you want to deal with it.
Okay.
Well, that was a good question, though. Yeah, you get to, the nice thing, a lot of this stuff is based off of how you get to kind of play with that piece. So we just kind of left it this way so you can tweak it once you have all your platforms in and so forth. Cool. Any other kind of questions or anything like that?
Alan had a question on chat and he asked, can you do difficulties such as easy, normal, hard, and one block?
Yes, you can. You could do that. I think that, nice, how? All right, so what you would have to do is first define each one of those, right? So what is considered easy? Does it mean the platforms are closer together? Like, and they're just like a million of them, or things like that, right? So what you can do is you could make the platforms wider, right? So if you made a new scene for each difficulty, it's easier to control those things, right? So then you could kind of move them around and so forth, because then you wouldn't want to do it via code, because then it just is a lot harder to do. So I would suggest you making multiple game scenes, but call it easy, medium, hard, and which one?
When I share my screen, I can't even do the endless mode at all. Here's what it looks like.
Okay, cool. Here, let's take a quick look at that.